Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to yet another edition of the show, Trek Wednesday, stardate 2016.209 at 22:16 Eastern Standard Time. I am joined here tonight by two of Cryptic Studios' greatest artists that ever walked the face of planet Earth, Thomas Maroney and Donny. Please forgive me as I forgot to pronounce your last name properly.
Versaja.
Thank you very much, good sir. We're also joined here by a regular panel. Some of the greatest folks who have ever walked the face of Starfleet or anything else for that matter over in Zeph Films. But we're going to start with Zeph Films first because this pretty much is his run of the mill right here. Zeph Films, please say hello to the audience, Lee.
Good evening, everyone. I am excited tonight.
Oh, we know you are. We know you are. And the head of the Grumpy Intelligence Agency, the man who needs more gravel and who's costing me an arm and a leg to try and ship that stuff from Mississippi. Please, Sarcasm Detector, say hello to the audience.
Do I have to?
I think you just did. And the chief of super cheesy and ultra crybaby tactics, the man who turned a T6, what was that, an Excelsior? From what was thought to be a really bad ship into a good gunboat?
Yes, I would like to say that right now I'm focusing more on immersion than cheese, Odin.
Oh, I'm sorry. The chief of super immersion tactics. Is that better?
I tried immersion once. I didn't like it.
All right, well, we're just going to jump straight into the meat and potatoes of this one right here, right now. There are a lot of things that we wanted to know in the day in the life of someone who actually makes this beautiful stuff. Oh, and by the way, 2 thumbs up on the Manticore. Love it, love it, love it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, Zeph, this is your show. Take it over.
All right. Well, thank you guys very much for coming on coming on to the show with us tonight, and my throat is already getting dry. I realize you guys are still at work in a boardroom right now, correct?
Yeah, we're in our, what we call it, the programmers conference room. So we're hanging out here with you guys late tonight to answer some questions.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. This is, I think this is something that I've been wanting for a little while. Get you, Thomas, on, and now Donny. And Donny shocked us all here with those bridges. But let's get to know you guys a little bit. So the first obvious question: favorite Trek and why? Like favorite series of Trek and why?
Well, I'd have to say my favorites are the original series movies. If you can count that as a series. But I grew up with TOS, and that was my first love of Star Trek. And then once I watched the movies and just saw like bigger budget like TOS stories, I was just like floored. And the uniforms and the ships and like just that era really intrigues me the most, I think. So that's definitely my favorite. But if I was have to say like the best, I would say TNG is definitely the best. Yeah, that's an interesting answer, actually. I don't think I've ever heard anybody answer the original series movies, but they do have their own like flavor, which I really like. I like the Horatio Hornblower in space. It's very naval. Yeah. And Undiscovered Country is definitely my favorite movie. As far as series, I grew up on Next Generation, and that's what I really hold like a high nostalgia value for. DS9, I think, ended up being kind of my, like, I think is kind of one of the pinnacles of Star Trek storytelling because it has that arc and it has a really diverse cast of really interesting characters, really memorable characters. And I think it's cool that, because in DS9 they didn't have to constantly bring in aliens of the week to provide the conflict. They could get away with having conflict and growth among the regular cast. So that's one thing that I think DS9 really has going for it.
Yeah, DS9. I have mixed feelings about the beginning of DS9. For me, I felt it was a little too religious and political near the beginning there. But then as they started getting into season 3 and introduced the Defiant and all that, it started to really pick up and really grab my interest. So DS9 is up there, but yeah, I'm a huge fan of the TNG and the TNG movies.
I think that it's interesting because we were just talking about this the other day at work. Was the fact that almost all the series started out rough. You know, you go back and watch the first 2 seasons of TNG, and it's hard to watch at times. You know, there's some gems here and there, but it started rough. So did DS9, Voyager. You know, is kind of that way as well as Enterprise. The only one that I think started strong in the beginning was TOS. I think that TOS first season was great, and then it had a higher production value than the other 2 seasons. But then you could really start to see where budgets started getting cut in the second, and the third season's almost just void of any good episodes, other than a handful to me anyway. So I think that's interesting that the rest of the series, started out kind of rocky and then got better as they went along, whereas TOS started out strong and then started to falter in its later seasons. So.
Do you think, and this is for everybody, do you think the new series is going to have the same pattern, or do you think it's going to start strong?
I don't know. I think it's hard to tell because we know so little about it, but it'll probably take its time to find its footing as well. But who knows? I mean, it's been so long since Trek's been on TV. Like, I have no idea what they're going to do, and it seems like it's going to be a radical departure than the regular episodic storytelling that we're used to. So.
Well, the hilarious thing about Brian Fuller is he starts shows really strong, and then usually they don't have enough. They don't hit the kind of big numbers they need to stick around for a long time. So I don't think that's going to happen with this show. But I think he's done this a lot by now, and I think he knows how to make a pretty big impact out of the gate. So hopefully, and the fact that it's going to be serialized, I think will help it a lot, because the first exposition episodes will probably be a little slow, but kind of towards the mid and end of the season, I think it's going to be really exciting. So that's my take on it so far.
Yeah, they've already kind of come out of the doors on a really surprising note. Like, I did not see a series of this era coming, and it's going to be really interesting to see how this goes. And I'm a Star Trek fan. I'm definitely going to watch it, and I'm personally hoping for the best. Sorry, Cam.
No, I think it really depends on whether they're going to be recording it all in one go, like the typical Netflix stuff that they do. I know it's not Netflix, it's CBS's own doohickey, whatever it is. But if they're recording it all at the same time, then it's likely to be of a higher quality. Or, because they can play with the order. They're not, having to record an episode per week or an episode every 2 weeks or whatever it is. When you do that, there is a noticeable progression from very cheesy to growing a beard, which, funny thing to say, that term came about because of Star Trek, because of TNG. We used to have the jumping the shark. The opposite of that is growing a beard, and that's thanks to TNG.
Yeah.
So
Riker grew the beard, and that's when the show got good.
Pretty much. Yeah. So if they record it all at the same time, and then they can play around with the order of which they record, they don't necessarily have to record the first episode first. They can record the first episode last.
Well, if they have, if let's say that they've been writing this whole time, and let's say they have the whole season written before they even film the first scene, which I have no idea, but if they did that, then they just film it in the order that they, they could even film okay, we know we need all the shots from this one flashback scene that we're going to pepper out through the whole season. So we're going to film all this stuff together, right? And so that stuff's going to be if they handle it that way, it'll be super consistent, which would be pretty cool. But I don't know. This is all purely speculation. They probably aren't going to handle it that way. Yeah, I'm really curious. So you guys think the new show is going to be take place in the kind of post or pre-TOS, post-Enterprise? Is that the vibe you're getting? Because they haven't said yet exactly when it's going to take place.
I think that seems to be the consensus. Well, I wouldn't say consensus, but that's like a popular theory among a lot of people that it's in that era somewhere. There's not a lot of details. I mean, all we've seen was there was a trailer with the ship being shown.
Yeah.
Which is really, really interesting.
And that ship definitely looks like that. Could be that era. I'd be interested if you guys have seen Beyond yet. That seems to be kind of the uniforms and the design of the USS Franklin from Star Trek Beyond seem to be from that era too. So I wonder if there might even be a preview on what we're getting in Star Trek Discovery.
Yeah. I just saw Beyond this afternoon, and it was awesome. I loved it.
I haven't seen it yet.
I found one little error with it, but I'm not going to talk about it. But it had to do with a first ship that achieved a certain speed. I'm like, wait, no. But that's a conversation for another time.
I mean, it's one of those things you can absolutely retcon it in certain ways and reconcile it in different ways. But yeah, it's probably not really material to this conversation.
Yeah. And just to touch back on series starting off a little rough. There's a couple of episodes that stick out really, really hard in my mind with TNG and DS9 that were just, they fall under the category of cringeworthy. Mm-hmm. And for TNG, it's the episode where there's that that virus on the ship that's famous Data and Tasha Yar got it on. I forgot the name of the episode.
The Naked Now.
Oh, The Naked Now. That one was just with Picard leaning up against the thing doing his little they just And then from DS9 where they're in that game and they gotta do the hopscotch and they're singing at the same time. I just like
move along home, I think.
Yeah.
What about the one where like the little fictional characters started showing up on DS9? Oh god, that was terrible.
Wishes were horses or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it was like Rumpelstiltskin or Rapunzel. Yeah, something like that.
So what is it about the Trek verse that got you, like, that sucked you in to Star Trek? For me, it's the pew pew. I love the pew pew. I love it so much. What aspect of Trek got you guys into Trek and made you love it so much that now you're doing it as a job?
I mean, I think this speaks to where I landed in the company as an environment artist, but I think it was the ships themselves, but I think I was always more interested in what was inside the ships. And I remember as a kid, I wish I still had these drawings, but as a kid, I would try to draw the bridge, and I had very fuzzy memories of TOS. And there wasn't a lot of books and stuff, and high quality photos that you could own back then of the sets. So I just remember like trying to draw those, and they evolved over time, and then eventually I learned how to make 3D models and stuff, and I was instantly like, oh, I should make 3D models of Trek bridges. So, that's where I started. So I think to me, it was just like the technology, I think, is probably what drew me to it the most. Was just, something that, as a kid in the 80s watching TOS reruns, like, it was still just like mind-blowing back then, and even though our own technology surpassed theirs in a few ways, like, for sure. But then I just was enamored by the sets and, being on a starship, that was always just something that was a dream of mine. So I just kind of was fascinated by it and eventually just put a lot of energy into, getting a job at this company. So.
Yeah, and, that's kind of a similar answer to me, where I always was fascinated by the ships and kind of, I guess, more so the outside. Like Zeph Film said, the pew pew, I always thought that was really cool. As I got older and I started to understand that Star Trek was really about exploration and science and cooperation and things like that. That really resonated with me too. But the thing that grabbed my attention as a kid was definitely seeing the Enterprise D kind of soar through space at the beginning of the intro to TNG. Every week. There's just something really captivating about that moment and the music and everything like that. Also kind of from the UI side, seeing the computer displays and like learning how to recreate them on my computer at home, that kind of is actually highly, really a big part of why I ended up becoming a graphic artist and was, doing recreating LCARs and working on Homeworld. I don't know if you guys ever played the RTS Homeworld, but I used to contribute to a mod for that. It was the Star Trek DS9 mod, and I learned a lot about using Photoshop and texturing and things from my participation in that, and that was way back in high school. So watching Star Trek really inspired me to be kind of creative too, and it's a good thing because it eventually morphed into a career for both of us, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's I can kind of relate on that. Like I was kind of an art guy growing up myself. I originally wanted to go into a career path as in 3D animation, but the course that I needed to get into college canceled, so I had to segue into the telecommunications side of things. But playing STO and starting to learn how to demo record, like the one thing that really resonated strong with me, like Nemesis, for example. There's the one scene where the scimitar is cloaked and the Enterprise is flying and it's in the nebula, and then all of a sudden it just starts getting shot at and knocked out of warp and then just drifts back, and there's all these really cool cinematic pans and stuff like that. Like, I love the story and I love the ships and I love the pew pew, but the music and the camera angles and paths that they do in these movies is something that just kind of motivates me, and I kind of take that and I put it into my work. And yeah, Star Trek, that aspect of Star Trek has kind of really motivated me for what I'm doing now. So, and it's a lot of fun. Like, I love Star Trek, and I love that I can actually be able to do this kind of stuff with stuff that you guys make in game. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and the movies that you put together of the ships are, top notch. They're really cool, and one of the most flattering things for me is that I get to work on something that then inspires other people, and that's I'm very, very privileged and humbled to be able to do that. So thank you for all the work that you put in showing off our ships. I really do appreciate it.
Oh,
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say that's why I do it. Like, I want to give like. Some people have made comments, well, why don't you show them in action? I'm like, well, I could do that, but I want to take like the time to like get up close and like appreciate the details that are put into like the hull and on the interior. And I said a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about the Kelvin timeline bridges, when you look down at the floor, you can tell like it has that marble finish to it, and it doesn't look perfect like floors normally do in a video game. You can see the blemishes in the ground, and it's just, that's why I do these videos, to show off like the level of detail that gets put into these things. It's just, it's crazy. And Donny, I gotta say, when Maria showed you the tweet when I first saw the bridge, I lost my I lost it. I'm like, oh my god, there's even lens flare. What the hell?
Well, I really appreciate that. And actually, I don't know if you knew this previously, but I'm completely new to the industry and this company. So seeing the video of the demo videos that you posted of a few of my bridges was completely validating for me. I was like, oh, I feel safe. Like, this is proof that like my work at this company is being appreciated. It's just kind of like, I've been here for 4 months, and at first I was kind of scared that being new to this industry would overwhelm me because I was a hobbyist before. I didn't go to school for it. I didn't have a job. another company. So I was really nervous that I was just going to like be overwhelmed by having deadlines and memory constraints and stuff like that. And you know, and when you also when you look at your work for weeks at a time when you're making it, you kind of get desensitized to it. So after not seeing the Kelvin Connie bridge for a while, then seeing it in your video, I was like, oh wow, like it was a great moment for me because I felt like, like cool, I've made my mark with some of the fans, and I've shown them that I can, the company and the players, that I can do a good job, and so it was a great moment. So I really appreciate you taking the time to show off both of our work in those videos.
I don't think it would be really a Zeph Films video if you were showing them in action. And, let's be honest, you have a lot of friends that make videos with a lot of action in them. So you're not really needed to do that. Let's be honest.
Yeah, that's true. Sorry, Thomas, you were going to say something there earlier.
I don't remember. Yeah, no, sorry, I don't remember what I was going to say.
No.
But I think we got it covered.
Cool. Now, Donny, you kind of touched on something that is actually the next question, and it was going to be, what did you guys do that before you came to Cryptic and started doing stuff for STO?
Well, before I came here, I've been a 3D hobbyist since I was 15. So that's always been something I've done. But before I came here, I was managing, for 8 years, I was managing a bar slash restaurant slash music venue on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. And it was a really popular bar. And I helped get it running like a proper business. And so that's what I pumped the last 8 years of my life into. But it was never a career path. It was just kind of something that paid the bills, and while I was, on my way to the next thing, and it started catching up with me there for a while. It's like, oh, I'm getting older, and like I don't want to be doing this forever. I really want to use my skills as an artist, as a career. So I just started pumping any bit of spare time that I had into honing my skills as a 3D artist, and as a Star Trek artist. Because my portfolio is almost purely Star Trek stuff. But that's what I was doing. And eventually, it was actually Thomas that noticed that there was an opening and noticed that I had some skills, and he recommended that I apply. And it was just kind of, after that, it was just kind of a matter of time until I came in for an interview and they gave me a job. So it's been a wonderful experience so far, and life-changing. Moving out west as opposed to southern Mississippi has been a plus. And but at the end of the day, coming into work and being surrounded by Star Trek, and I get to watch episodes of Star Trek while I work, and talk about Star Trek on a daily basis. Like, I couldn't really ask for more. It's just like a dream come true. Like, I'm using my skills as an artist and on a Star Trek product, and I can't. It's hard to imagine ever topping that.
Quick interjection here. Question from the audience. Moneybags P1 asks, "What is the bar's name?"
Your bar.
It's called the Government Street Grocery, and it's in Ocean Springs, Mississippi.
Okay, thanks.
As far as me, I've actually been working at Cryptic for it'll be 6 years in November, and I before that I was a website kind of a web manager, a webmaster for Southeast Missouri State University. So I also kind of came across the country to work here in California. I don't know if you guys were really around or playing the game way back in the day, but my kind of approach to getting hired at Cryptic was I made a bunch of minigame mock-ups and posted them on the forums, and long story short, the team saw them and liked them and ended up buying them. So the waveform scanning minigame that actually got implemented, and in a also the Omega minigame in a very different format. Were also based on mock-ups that I did before I was even hired to work here. So basically, my path was that I went to college for graphic design, and I had honed my skills on doing things like the mods for Homeworld and some other games like Bridge Commander, doing UI and textures and a little bit of modeling, but not much. And then Cryptic had an opening for a web position, and that's where my skill set was at the time, so I took it. And so I started actually working. This was back when we were owned by Atari. So I started, I kind of used they purchased the minigame art before they hired me. They just kind of treated it as like a freelance project and cut me a check, and actually they made me an NPC in the game. So you could go to Memory Alpha and talk to Commander Thomas Maroney for a while. And then later on, the web design opening came up, and I was like, oh, I actually could do that job. Like, I wanted to work on the game, but I didn't have any skill sets related to game development. I just was good at graphic design and web design and things like that. So I applied for that, and in my cover letter I said, hey, you guys already bought art from me, you know who I am. And so long story short, they ended up hiring me, and I worked on website stuff for about 6 months, and then I think the SDO team lost their UI artist, and so they pulled me away from the website stuff and had me start doing UI on STO. And so I was doing UI from kind of mid 2011 all the way up to November 2014, I think. And then in late 2014 is when I started to move on, decided I wanted to tackle ships because that's really what I was super passionate about as far as Star Trek goes. And so I was like, I've been doing UI for a while, I want to try something new, I'd love to work on ships. And so they're like, all right, well, you have 2 weeks to learn Max and do a ship, do our ship art test. And so I buckled down and did some practice stuff and crammed it. And they gave me a little bit of grace, I think, in terms of what I turned in and evaluating it, because they knew they'd have people here to mentor me and things like that. But so I moved on to doing 3D ships, and lately I've gone back to UI to help out with Agency yesterday and console, and we'll be going back to ships kind of a bit further in the future. But right now I'm back on UI for the time being.
Sorry, did you say you had 3 weeks to learn 3D Studio Max?
I mean,
2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah. Well, I didn't learn it well. I learned it enough to make a saucer and some nacelles, and I made a ship that really kind of was like, if you can imagine the Manticore, but as like a carrier, like a giant version of the Manticore. That's kind of what the ship ended up looking like. But it wasn't very detailed, and it wasn't super good. So like I said, they wanted to keep me around as an employee because they knew I love Star Trek and I love the game and everything, and so they were willing to give me a little kind of forgiveness on the fact that I wasn't as technically skilled as I probably should have been by the time I turned that ship in, and from there I was able to develop my skill set and to get better, get faster, and I feel a lot more confident now than I did when I started. That's for sure. So.
Oh, dude, and it totally shows in your work. Like, the ships that you've put out, like the Manticore. Odin and I love the Manticore. Like, that is one of the, our favorite ships that have been designed from the scratch, from the ground up. Love it. And kudos to you for learning 3D Studio Max that quick, because that was one of the programs that I had to learn as a prerequisite in high school to get into college for 3D animation, and that program ain't easy.
That's not intuitive. I mean, most professional grade productivity programs aren't easy. They're not intuitive. They're not supposed to be. They're for people who know what they need to do, and if you really want to do it, you just gotta learn how. But thank you. I have to. I mean, the Manticore started out as the Chimera, which was designed by Jason Lee, also known as Vector. And I want to make sure he gets credit for that original design. And if you ever want to see some really awesome Star Trek ships, just Google Vector, Vektor. He's done some amazing, some other Star Trek designs. He's done an amazing kind of subtle reboot of the Constitution, like a modernization of the Constitution that's really subtle, but very, still very sleek and graceful. And it was done before we knew what the Kelvin Constitution was going to look like. So he was saying, oh, well, clearly they're going to have to update the model somehow. This is how I would do it, and it's pretty subtle, but it's really cool. So he's definitely one of the voices in my head when I'm working on ships. It's like, what would Sternbach do? What would Drexler do? What would Okuda do? What would Probert do? And I also think of this guy, Jason Lee. What would he do? Because he's got some amazing designs and really has a way to just make his ships graceful and still kind of functional at the same time.
Quick
I still
question
think it's
about
a
Jason
damn
Lee.
shame.
Go on,
ahead,
Sarcasm.
No, I was just gonna say it's a damn shame we couldn't get you guys on and the TrekYard guys on at the same time.
Yeah, we'd still love to. I'd love to be able to go on the TrekYards eventually and get that figured out. We've been talking with them on and off, trying to figure it out. So I'm sure it'll happen.
Yeah, Samuel has been talking to me for years, saying he was going to interview me for the show at some point, but it's just never happened. So.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. I'm sure it's always interesting to see when they look at our ships how they interpret things, and because they're very. I like how. I'm not sure how to phrase this. I like how they'll see a little box or a square or something or a triangle, and they're like, oh, I wonder if that's the subspace induction field, and I put it there, and I'm the one who put it there. It's like, yeah, of course, that's what it's for. It's like, in reality, I just needed something there to break up the space or to look cool or whatever. But it's always fun seeing how they interpret Star Trek ship designs. So, but we're on the show now, so let's talk about the show things.
They're good buddies of ours. Sorry, Odin, go ahead.
No, it's good. It's good. I mean, that's something that we definitely want to see. You guys link up with TrekYards and then listen on that episode. So I'm sure, Stuart, I know you're listening out there, man. Make it happen. So that's that. Is Jason Lee still around? Are you still in contact with him by chance?
I'm friends with him on Facebook. I'm not like buddies with him. I don't know. Donny, he also posts at Trek BBS, right?
I don't know.
He used to.
Under what name? Vector?
Vector, yeah. Vector Visual or Vector.
I'm not aware of him now.
Vektor. You haven't seen like the USS Grandeur threads over there?
I have. I've seen the threads, but I'm not active in them. I haven't really
Okay. Anyway, yeah. Trek BBS might be the best way to get a hold of him. I don't know. I would feel self-conscious trying to IM him through Facebook, since that's just such a personal way to get in touch with somebody.
True. Well, we appreciate that. And from someone who's actually looked at 3D Studio Max and Rational Rose, and I said, yeah, no, that's not for me. Bravo for figuring that one out quick and designing anything out of it, let alone something that looked good.
Oh, thank you.
So I think I talked about this a little bit with Donny, and we'll address this little issue here before we get into the nitty gritty. Why doesn't Donny have a nickname like Thomas the Cat or Zeronius Rex here?
A, probably because I haven't played the game a lot, and B, because I guess I was very unimaginative when I did start my nickname on SDO, and I was just like, oh, it's my real name, and yeah.
Well, I think you're just in general your internet presence name is based on your name, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to out that on the air or anything, but
yeah, I just have never. I've had a lot of nicknames, but never one that was like everyone used.
Yeah.
So people would call me different things, but it was never one thing that like stuck or anything that I really enjoyed. being like, oh, like T-Bone sounds great. What? No, you know. But
T-Bone?
but yeah, I don't know. Some of my nicknames on some various like multiplayer game sites or whatever is Donny Rocket. So I mean, I guess that could be something. That was a nickname that my old boss from the bar I used to work out gave me. So that's my name on Overwatch. So I mean, I could probably change it to that, and we can just say Donny Rocket, whatever. I don't know.
Yeah,
But
we were trying to come up with you before you got onto the show. I think the best we came up with was what Digital Donny.
Yeah, no.
Digital Donny or Donny, Donny Digital Victor or whatever.
Yeah.
So, yeah. We tried, man. We tried.
Let's stick with Donny Rocket. That sounds.
I like it, Donny Rocket.
Yeah.
That could stick. Everybody
Much
that's
more hardcore and much more tough. Cool sound. You know, like I drink
it's
jet fuel for dinner. And
yeah, it feels very like 50s, like
Yeah.
kind of like Fallout.
50s drive-in
tunnel
diner,
things.
Fallout, exactly.
Yeah.
Or
Henceforth, you
Pokemon
shall
Go,
now
Team
be
Rocket.
known as Donny Rocket.
There we go. I'm good with that.
And Thomas, I'm guessing your nickname came from you like cats?
No,
Oh.
it did not.
Oh, all right. Let's set this record straight here.
I kind of want to hear this story too.
Oh my God. What is your show like rated?
Oh,
Well, we will rate it whatever level it needs to be rated at.
Yeah.
Just tell the story.
I just forget. Do you guys curse or
Yes, we do.
like,
oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, we have.
We have. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. I'm trying to decide if I want to go through this whole story.
I think you have to now.
I guess I have to now. So in high school, I had a limited selection of friends. Is probably a charitable way to put it. And one of my close friends was part of this like bigger group of guys that I thought were like really cool and hung out together all the time. And they really, and I was like, oh, those guys are cool. I wish I were part of that in crowd, right? And so my friends that primarily was actually my friends hung out with them a lot, and he was nice enough to still kind of let me hang out with him, and by extension, like hang out with them sometimes. But I was never actually part of that group. So anyway, I had a locker next to one of them, and Maria came in to hear the story. She's heard it before. You know the story, though.
I know!
She's really excited. Anyway, so I had a locker next to one of these guys, and I was getting my books one day, and some of the other guys were there, and one of the guys comes up, and he's like, "Hey, what's up, Thomas the Cat?" And just out of the blue. And I didn't question it. I was like, "Oh, that's awesome! I have a nickname. I'm in. I'm accepted. I'm one of the group. This is amazing." So like that was about the time like ICQ and AOL Instant Messenger and all those things were what was going on, and so like my AOL Instant Messenger name was Mr. Thomas the Cat, and my ICQ name was Thomas the Cat, and my Yahoo email address was like thomasthecat_2001@yahoo.com. All this stuff. I just used it like my whole internet identity as it was being established as the internet was being something that you could have a presence in just became Thomas the Cat, because I was just so excited to have earned a nickname among this group of people that I kind of idolized and wanted to be a part of. So fast forward literally like 15 years later, 10 years later, I don't know. It was a few years ago. I had a friend friend of a friend sort of thing, like small world sort of situation, who knew one of the guys through a different person, knew one of the guys who's in that group. And I guess my name came up in conversation with this person's friend, and she was like, "Oh, Thomas Maroney, you remember that guy?" I was like, "Yeah, we called him Thomas the Cat because we thought he was a big pussy."
Wow.
So I find this out. I find this out again. I found that out. I guess it must have been 3 years ago now or something.
Why are you here?
Yeah, while I was working at Cryptic, so I had made it a brand. It was essentially my personal brand was Thomas the Cat, and it turned out this whole time it was just this big fucking insult, and I was just oblivious to that. So, at the end of the day, I work on Star Trek and they don't, so they can suck it.
Yeah, I was just gonna say you could probably turn around and be like, "Call me what you want. I make motherfucking ships, son. I designed the JJ Trek and the Connie."
Yeah, it's funny. It's a similar story to most of the people that work here at Cryptic, and I think that's why I love the people I work with so much. Is that we were all those kids in high school that just got made fun of and people laughed at, and now we're all like working on our we're living our dream, our literal dream. And it doesn't matter to us anymore, what those people thought, definitely doesn't to me. But it's just funny when you look back. It's like everybody here was that kid, and we all have that common bond with each other, so it's nice.
Makes me kind of wonder about my nickname now.
Yeah, who knows?
Detected.
Oh my god! Wow, I gotta wipe the tears from my eyes after that one. That's all right.
There's a reason why we muted ourselves on that one, so we just didn't go all sorts of crazy and laughing.
It's fine. I feel like I what is that term? I took it back. I reclaimed it or whatever.
You own
I made it my own. I owned it. Yeah. So I'm not. I have no regrets about the way things played out. It was certainly a shock to me when I found out at that point where that actually came from. So there you go. Now you know.
Have you ever divulged that story on a podcast yet, or?
I think so. I definitely the day I found out, I erupted on Twitter. I was like, oh my god, you guys, you have to. I finally figured out where Thomas, because before discovering that, people asked me why why is your nickname Thomas the Cat? And I don't know, it just kind of happened in high school and it stuck. So now I know.
Oh, that's awesome. Ooh. We actually had one more personal question here real quick. Besides STO and when you're not working, and if you're not playing STO, what other games is your favorite that you enjoy playing?
Go ahead.
Geez, there's so many. Oh God, I don't know where to begin with that.
Well, you said Overwatch.
Well, I don't play Overwatch on my own time. That's something that we play at work together on our lunch breaks. So, but I have yet to play Overwatch at home at all. Let's see. I'm a huge fan of Wolfenstein, that whole series, and the last one that came out was probably one of my favorite in a long time. Alien Isolation was another one that I just I drool over. And I've recently been finally getting into the Assassin's Creed series because it was one of those series that always just kind of was that I never really got into, and the last few months I've just been really just kind of diving into those. But I do still spend a lot of time working on personal 3D projects as well. So sometimes that when I'm not working on a game, I'm doing that in my free time. So.
Yeah, for me, I really enjoy strategy games like Civilization, turn-based stuff. Civilization, we're kind of getting into a renaissance of 4X space games right now, which is really exciting. Masters of Orion's in early access, and Stellaris just came out. I played a lot of Stellaris. And then Civilization 6 will be out later this year, so I'm really excited for that. That's kind of what I've been doing a lot of lately. I played some of, still kind of slowly working my way through Doom, the new Doom relaunch. And that game is amazing. It's really well done. So, yeah, I'm kind of all over the place in terms of type of game that I play. But lately I've been interested in strategy.
And I, for one, I don't know about Thomas, but I'm really looking forward to No Man's Sky. I think that the
Oh
whole office is
yes.
too. But I used to play a lot of space flight sims back in the day, especially like X-Wing and TIE Fighter. And I got into Elite Dangerous briefly there, and I still touch it every now and then. But No Man's Sky looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. So
Yeah, I was looking at that earlier as well, and I'm really excited for it to come. It's definitely got that kind of, that privateer, freelancer uh, type vibe. You can go anywhere. It's really, really exciting. I'm hoping that comes out soon. That's coming out next month, isn't it? Or a couple of months?
It'll actually come out while we're in Vegas. It's come out the 5th, I think.
no, actually, I think it's changed. It's August 9th for the
9th?
consoles and 12th for the
Oh,
PC.
okay.
So.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that. Oh, by the way, apologies in case my daughter has blown up any of you guys over in Overwatch. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I've barely played it at all, but yeah.
Yeah, you mentioned Donny. You mentioned Alien Isolation, and I made the mistake of playing that game first time at night, headphones over both ears, and it was at the beginning stages when you're first starting to go through the station, and one of my dogs came up behind my leg and licked it, and yeah, almost shit myself. But yeah, that game is scary.
The thing I like. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
The thing I love about that game though is just how well they recreated the they took what little was seen in Alien of the Nostromo interior and then built an entire space station out of that aesthetic. And I played it through twice now, and once was just for me to go through and take screenshots of the little details that I loved, and I use that as inspiration when I'm working. So that's one of my favorite examples of a game that really captured the essence of a film, I think, is Alien Isolation. So, and that's what I mean. That's my goal when I build interiors for Trek is I want a player to feel like they're actually there, and they're actually in a fully fleshed out, environment for Star Trek, and that's been the driving force between my entire career as a 3D artist, was wanting to transport myself and others to a location from a movie, or a TV show, and so Alien Isolation really hit home with me.
A quick question on this one, real quick here. Do you think you could actually combine that sort of feeling from Alien Isolation into, say, remember the episode Conspiracy, Next Generation episode, where you had those little alien parasites?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So could you make a big one and then get that same kind of alien feel, where you're moving around suddenly, gotcha?
You mean for Stowe?
Yes, for Stowe.
I guess that depends on what the content designers want us to do.
Well, have you played through Delta Rising?
I have.
Okay, so I mean, we do have the conspiracy aliens in there.
Yes, yeah, but it doesn't have that same kind of gotcha feeling,
Yeah, no, that's true.
Yeah, I don't know if they would ever want us to do a horror vibe in Stowe. I don't know, but that depends on people other than us, though. So.
You know
we'll do
what?
a Halloween theme, something like that.
There is one episode, one mission. What Lies Beneath with the Bonnikins. That a lot of people love that mission because of the creep factor to it, and that's also another mission that I played in the middle of the night for the first time with headphones over both ears, and I was in an apartment at the time, so my computer room was in a solarium. So there was a screen door to the left of me and glass door to the left and glass door behind me, and they were both closed, so I didn't wake up my girlfriend. And I saw something move out of the corner of my eye on the left, and I just jumped and got scared, and it was my own damn reflection in the window. But yeah, I love that mission. But moving on to Donny, you were saying getting inspiration from Alien Isolation. Is there any chance that there might be any revamps to Federation interiors, like the engineering area, or the interiors, like the hallways and the quarters and stuff like that?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you. It's I think that eventually, as time goes on, we'd like to update as much as we can, but it really depends on what I'm a slave to the people that decide where they're going to take us next in the game. So if that's something that comes across my desk, and they're like, hey, this is your task, I'd love to do it, but I have no idea if that's what is going to be, what we're going to be working on, down the road. So
typically when we do revamps and things like that, most of the time, especially for environment, the scope is so huge that we kind of have to justify it in terms of, this is the story that we're telling, and we decide, okay, well, we want this mission or this series of missions to be on a Federation starbase, so that means that, we might as well make a new Federation kit, and this new Federation kit looks a lot better than the old one, so maybe we can propagate it to different areas, but who knows what that is going to be going forward. We just finished doing a lot of TOS stuff, and actually, as part of Agency yesterday, and I think even Donny did this himself, cleaned up some of the original series interiors and fixed some details and things like that. So typically we do things like that. It's because it makes sense. It fits in with a larger context of what our goals are. So, and we're kind of spinning down on Agency yesterday and starting up on something new shortly. We're still working really hard, doing a lot of stuff for the big console release in the fall. So that's really exciting. But we're still kind of calibrating what our next big thing is going to be. So we can't really say what that is, but
because we really don't even know at this point what that is.
Well, some people know, like us, like obviously Al knows and Rakosa knows and everything, but us, you might have heard this term before, line developer, like the people just in charge with making the environments or making the ships. We're a little. It takes a little while for the kind of directives to filter down to our level in terms of what the next tasks are going to be. So. So we'll see what happens and what we have to make next. It'll be exciting, whatever we have to do.
Just to put a little bug in your ear, there's some people who are still really looking forward to maybe a TNG interior for the Galaxy.
I would certainly love to see that too.
And personally, if that ever comes, to the environment's desk, I would love to. I'd volunteer for that in a heartbeat. To be able to recreate the bulk of the Galaxy interiors for our game, I think that'd be awesome. But I have no idea if that would ever happen. But if it does, I'd love to work on it.
Yeah.
Okay, I gotta ask this question. God damn it, Moneybags. All right, between the two of you, which one would make the better Orion strip club?
Donnie's in better shape than me, so I'm going to nominate him.
Wait, what exactly is the question?
Was it strip club or stripper?
Orion strip club.
Oh. Well, probably Donnie, just because he's an environment artist, and I'm not. That's not what I do.
Yeah, I don't know if that's ever going to go in the game, but
we have Nimbus. That's probably the closest you're going to get.
And Mirror Bajor.
Yeah. Well, even Kronos, I think, has there's a implied den of ill repute.
Oh yeah.
On Kronos somewhere.
Right, but there wasn't enough batliths and chains, so.
Or paint sticks.
Now, just Thomas, I know last year there was a lot of work that you were doing, and I can't remember where I saw this from, but there was you had put in a lot of your own time not redoing, but making ships. I want to say it was the Andromeda class. But is that something that you do often? Is just in your spare time make ships, like work on ships for the game, or was that kind of just a timeline is coming up soon, I need to get on this quick?
So I mean, what's happened in the past? I've been, like I said, I've been on UI, working on UI for Agents of Yesterday and for the console port lately, so I haven't really been able. The last ship that I did was the Kelvin Constitution, but usually what would happen is, oh, we're gonna release a Tier 6 Galaxy, or we're gonna release a Tier 6 Akira or Prometheus or whatever. And I really wanted to make sure, if I could, that some of those older models from the launch of the game, if they didn't get rebuilt, they at least got cleaned up. So a lot of those, in the case of the Galaxy, was completely rebuilt. In the case of the Akira and Prometheus, I started with the existing model, and the general shapes were close enough that I just did a lot of detail work and reskinned them and everything. A lot of that was done in my own time to make sure that when you got the Tier 6 version of the ship that you wanted the canon skin, that you felt really good about spending that $30 and getting, like a really pristine, accurate canon skin with your ship. So that's not something I've had time to do for each ship. I know, and there are a lot of people who are like, well, why wasn't the Excelsior rebuilt? And I hear those people, and I'd love to do it someday. I just haven't had time. I didn't have time when we released the Regent, and Ian Richards did the model for the Regent. It's a beautiful ship, but I didn't. No, not the Regent. Excuse me. The Regent is the Tier 5 Sovereign refit. The
Resolute.
Resolute, yes, thank you. So the Resolute was a Tier 6 Excelsior, and Ian Richards executed that, designed by Hector Ortiz, and they did an amazing job. It's a great looking ship, but I just didn't have time when they were working on that to go back and rebuild the canon models. And it's also compounded by the fact, specifically for the Excelsior, that I'd have to do two, right? Because you have the Undiscovered Country version of the Excelsior, and then you have the Lakota Generations Excelsior. So, and you don't want to do one and not the other. So yeah, I've spent a lot of my time on projects like that, going back and cleaning up those old models when I can. I think I've done, and sometimes I actually do get scheduled time to do it, and sometimes I just kind of carve out personal time, like the Enterprise for Agents of Yesterday, redoing the Constitution class for Agents of Yesterday. That was on my schedule to do. That was part of the planned development time for Agents of Yesterday, because obviously it's a flagship thing, for the whole experience. And that had dividends in the other TOS ships, because we started with the new Connie model that I built, and then we were able to take those pieces and use them in different ways, interesting ways, for all the other all the other TOS ships. And I think the Defiant was another one I actually got time to work on, because I did rebuild the canon Defiant too, and that was challenging. But yeah, no, it's it varies, but yeah, I've done a lot of that on my own time, just for different reasons. I kind of look at it like, I love these ships. I want to be building them anyway, and I need to get better at doing 3D art fast, because as far as a career, I'm kind of at a deficit, 5-10 years from other 3D artists at the studio. So I'm trying to work a lot to catch up to them, and how can I do that in a way that makes a lot of people happy? And so that's, it's kind of a no-brainer to spend that time, if we're going to be modeling anyway, to spend that time updating old ships in STO, because I know exactly how people feel about those ships, how passionate they are, and I want to honor that.
Well, we do appreciate that, and I'm sure that you probably, if you haven't heard directly, probably indirectly, time and time again, we're wondering why the issue with the core has not been addressed as far as some of the old skins, and is it just literally manpower and you haven't gotten around to it on your free time? or I guess that's with all the other ships there that have had some sort of skin issues where they don't have the skins from the previous tiers applicable to be used on the latest tier of that ship.
I'm going to make a note. I mean, a lot of that stuff, like I said before, those bugs come up, and you're just not, when you find out about it, you're not in a position to do anything about it because you're working on something else. And so there was a thread on Reddit a while back that has a bunch of just random ship bugs in it. And I bookmarked that thread, and I want to go back and fix all those bugs someday. I just haven't had time. So yeah, I mean, and triaging and fixing some of these bugs, sometimes it's really simple, and sometimes you can waste a whole day before you actually figure out what the real problem is. Ships are an incredibly, the implementations of ships in Star Trek Online, especially ships with customization, are actually incredibly complex. And so, tracking down some of these customization issues can be a real bear. So I made a note for the core, and I'll go add that to my Outlook list of tasks to be addressed. I don't, when I have time to do that, I can't say, but I'll make sure that we do get a chance to look at it. But it's sort of like, I can't really think of a good metaphor off the top of my head, but it's just the idea of, I have to focus on this task right now, and to go and work on this other thing, you have to kind of not just shift your mindset, but also even shift the tools that you're working with, maybe even shift the branch you're working with. There's a lot of things that kind of factor into how you sit down and approach fixing up some of these older issues. So.
And also, I'm guessing a bit of a the only way I can really describe it is like a creative motivation. Like your motivation creatively right now is set to this ship. To kind of go look at something else might be a little bit harder. Like it's something with me, like with the videos. Like last month with all those videos, like I wanted to bang them all out as quickly as I could. But it's like I finished one, I'm like, oh god, I don't know if I can do this other one right now. Like I'm kind of stuck. I have this soundtrack stuck in my head right now with this ship, and I'm looking at these other ships. I'm like, I can't do it. So I kind of get what you're trying to get at there. It's yeah.
Thomas is somewhat of an anomaly at the studio, I think, and he pumps a lot. I mean, and it should be noted that he pumps a lot of his personal time to continuing work on something he's already been working on all day. Whereas, most of the studio goes home at a certain time. Thomas is known for sticking around and giving up his free time to do good work. So, but I have to agree with him. Like it's very hard sometimes to fit into your schedule that your boss gives you to do these extra little things that we know would make players happy. But at the same time, it's like it's really hard to fit that kind of time into your lives when you're already spending a good chunk of it on something that you're mandated to do. So, but yeah, Thomas he's a workhorse, and I know the whole studio appreciates him for that, and the players do too, from what I can tell. So
thanks.
Yeah, that was when I learned about that. I'm pretty sure it was last year. That was something that and still does really stick with me. I'm like, wow, and I'm sure that there's other people there who, like, they don't. This isn't really a 9-to-5 job to them. This is I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I'll stay a little bit longer. I'll do this. So I really respect that. And of the developers, I've talked the most with Thomas because I love ships. He makes ships. Who am I going to talk to, right? And that's something that I've always respected about Thomas, is that he goes beyond, above and beyond the Call of Duty when it comes to making these ships. So I just wanted to make that known to people who didn't know that Thomas and others do put in a lot of their personal time to bring the awesomeness that we have in game. So props to you guys for all that extra hard work. It really shows in the end product.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to point that out, and it's it's Star Trek, man. Like, it's awesome. Like, I'm lucky to work on it. I want to make sure I make the most of that opportunity for sure.
Yeah, we definitely appreciate it, and especially when you take the time out to explain what you're doing, what the process is, when you actually have time, when you try to make feasible time for something else. But we understand that better. It's like, oh, well, geez, I mean, he's putting in his own personal time and doing this. We're understanding the way he works. Oh, we're trying to put ourselves in his shoes. Man, this is a lot of work. Whoa, we'll slow down and appreciate things a little bit more now.
Yeah,
So,
and it's
thank you.
It's always a fine line to walk because I don't know exactly like how much of how we do things I'm allowed to share necessarily, but it's always a little. I'll be a bit candid and maybe a little bit more candid than I should be. It's always a little frustrating when you spend 60 hours a week, 80 hours a week, whatever, doing something, and it comes out and you're really excited. It's like, oh yeah, like the Tier 6 whatever Andromeda came out or whatever, and we revamped the Galaxy model, and then people are like, when are you gonna, immediately when this thing comes out, they're like, well, when are you going to do X, right? It's like I just spent hundreds of hours on this thing, and already like I have my to-do list is like twice as long, like so that's so I appreciate that you guys are appreciative, I guess, but that's something that kind of gets under my skin a little bit is the treadmill of MMO development is a little there's always something new to do even after you kind of pour your heart and soul into something. There's always the next thing that needs to be done. So, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
Do you feel that you're losing something when immediately you pour your heart and soul into something, you're very proud of the work, but you don't have the time to admire it and appreciate and see other people, do the same admiration, have the same admiration and appreciation for it because you're just running off to do something else immediately?
That's a good question. I think what helps is when it's I am not, and I don't think anybody works in any creative field above getting kind of that buzz you get when people see something you do and they really like it. That's certainly a validating feeling, and so anytime a new ship that I work on is revealed and people like it, that's just like Christmas to me. Like I always look like I look forward to that feeling as much as I look forward to like my birthday or Christmas or something. Like when we kind of showed pictures of the Kelvin Constitution for the first time. That was an awesome day because I had worked so hard on that ship and getting it just right, and so seeing people react to that positively was felt really, really good. And so I usually try to take some time to just kind of savor that if I can, because it is important to kind of reap the rewards of your hard work, I think, and maybe don't get as much time as I like sometimes, but I do. I'm not above kind of basking in the glory of it when I can.
Yeah.
Donny, I don't know if you have anything to add.
Well, it's all still very new to me, but like I said earlier, seeing the players react positively to the bridges that I've made so far, was great. And there's been a few people that have reached out to me, privately or whatever, and told me that, they were really happy that my work's in game now. And I have a few people that have followed me as an artist before I came to Stowe, and they're really, just they're thrilled to see stuff of mine get released finally. And but to know that it's accepted well, just not only just makes me happy, but just also validates my place at the company. And
I think the operative word is fawn.
But and the Klingon bridge, for example, the Kelvin timeline Klingon bridge for the D4X, that was the first time I'd ever done a non-Federation interior, even in with my even in my own time in the past. I'd never done anything other than Federation stuff. So That was actually something that I ended up having to put a lot of overtime in on because I was still kind of learning the engine and the techniques that we use on Stowe to make our environments and stuff. And I put in a lot of time those 2 weeks that I had to spend on that bridge. And you know, especially like seeing it in the Zeph Films video for the first time. Like, and I hadn't looked at it in months, and I was just like, oh wow, that looks good. And so I don't know. It's all still new to me. I'm sure there will be some people that might hate something that I make, and I have yet to do that, or that might complain about that the buttons weren't in the right place or whatever. But you know, I try to make things as accurate as I can in the time frame that I have to do it. So, but it's been a very blessing experience, you know, making my mark in the Star Trek, you know, universe in the short amount of time I've had to do so.
If you guys haven't yet, you should check out Donny's website. What is it?
Rigel7studios.blogspot.com.
What kind of got my attention? I actually had Donny and I shared mutual friends from going to Star Trek Las Vegas, and so I actually hadn't met Donny at all, but between going to Trek BBS and then Star Trek Las Vegas, I was aware of him and kind of the work he had done. And Donny has done some amazing recreations of the Motion Picture Enterprise.
Yeah, as it was featured in the Wrath of Khan.
Yeah, in Unreal, in the Unreal Engine. So you should definitely go there and check out some of the stuff that he's done. It's pretty phenomenal, and it definitely got our attention. And you know, we were really excited to get another environment artist on STO who was such a huge Star Trek fan. So, and it's definitely paid off big time.
Yeah, if you can drop me that web link in on Facebook when you're done, and we'll make sure
it's already on the show notes.
Oh, is it? Awesome.
Perfect.
Sure. I'll go take a look at that.
So,
but I do. Oh, all right, go ahead.
Sorry,
Capt.
I just want to give you guys, both of you, a little bit of a professional tip, a pro tip. You guys should really enjoy the tears of the haters. You should revel in it. You should let that hate flow through you and make you stronger.
I love all our players.
Now, I'm going to start with the Klingon bridge. Now, the Klingon bridge on the D4X, did you have to create that from the ground up, or was there kind of specifications that came from CBS for that bridge?
No, nothing from CBS. That was actually concepted by our amazing concept artist, Hector Ortiz.
Oh, yeah.
It's Sandman979, I think, on Reddit and Twitter. It's either 979 or 797, one of those two. I'm pretty sure it's 979.
I was really excited when I saw the concept work for it, and I was like, oh, I can't wait to work on that bridge. And so he concepted it out, and he also, part of his concept is what he does is he builds a very rough 3D model, just kind of get a feel for space, and then he does a paint over that in Photoshop. So he had that. He gave me both of those things, and so some of the geometry was already laid out, but I had to rebuild it because it was just a very rough rendition, and I also had to size it properly and get it, because our game has to allow for so many players and the third-person camera, and it can't, it has to act right, when it's in a confined space. That's one of the reasons why our bridges are a little bit bigger than they would be on an actual television show. But so then I had to go through and make sure the size was right and get that approved by design once they did a walkthrough, and then I just started detailing from there. So and I stayed pretty solidly to the concept. It was my first time working from concept and not from an actual set blueprint or something like that. So I stayed true to the concept as much as I could and within our limitations of our engine. So yeah, I didn't really have a lot to do with the actual design, but I built it completely just based off of a very rough geometric thing, and then I added my own personal touches in there and stuff like that. But it's. I mean, if you see the, I'll try to do a side by side and send that to you so you can see the concept versus how it turned out. But it stayed pretty true to it.
Actually, I think I might have seen the concept art on your website, because then you made a blurb. Yeah, there was concept art, and then there was, or maybe it was Hector's site. And
It was probably Hector's. I don't think I've released any.
Because there was a screenshot from my Klingon video of the bridge, and it was a comparison between the two. I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But on the topic of we'll call them the Kelvin timeline ships, the Vengeance and the Connie, both ship and bridge, was that a little bit easier to do? Because those you actually had specs from CBS that was sent in, correct?
We didn't really have specs. They didn't send us any blueprints.
Well, they gave us the length, and that's about it. And they gave us some renders for the ships, but not the actual bridge sets. So I think, Donny, I think you just had to kind of watch the movie and get screen grabs and other reference and stuff.
Yeah, and I actually have to give credit to Nate. Is it Herzog? Nate Herzog. He's another environment artist here. He had actually started the geometry of the Kelvin Connie bridge. And so I pretty much took that and modified it a little bit here and there where I felt it needed it, and then I made the materials for that. So I actually started off, I was really lucky to already been given, a work in progress geometry model of the bridge. But to my knowledge, Nate built that completely from screenshots, because I don't think that we were given any set blueprints. And when it came to the Vengeance, which was the bridge that I made, that I was assigned to make after I did the Kelvin Klingon bridge, I was like, hey, do we have any schematics? And our art lead was like, nope. And so I was kind of scared. I was like, oh, I've maybe seen 2 screenshots of that bridge, and I had no idea where to start. But the closer I looked at it closely, and I was like, oh, well, I recognize this from the Kelvin Connie bridge, and this. I was like, I bet this is the same set, just redressed. Mm-hmm. So I did some more investigation, and somebody at the company shared with me a DVD special, and it actually, and I watched it, and it was on the Vengeance bridge, and my suspicions were confirmed that that was an actual redress. They just pretty much painted everything black, threw in some evil-looking pillars, and changed a few more things here and there, but the basic structure was the same as the Kelvin Connie bridge. So I did the same thing with the bridge. I was like, okay, well, I took what I needed from the Kelvin Connie bridge, slapped the black material on it, and that saved a ton of time instead of having to rebuild a bridge from the ground up in 10 days. So yeah, I pretty much did that, added the new pieces that needed to be in there, changed a lot of the materials and did material swaps to make it black and evil looking, and and so that was it. So, but no, we weren't given any set blueprints from CBS. As far as my knowledge, they just pretty much will give us screenshots and stuff. But we do a lot of the research ourselves. I heavily frequent TrekCore.com to get screen grabs there when I need it, and I will go through episodes or movies or whatever I need to take additional screenshots. But I also in my years of making Star Trek environments, I've amassed a huge reference library, personal, that I have at home, and I can bring in references from there to work to if I need to. So
yeah, I guess I don't think I have anything to add to that.
Walk us through the process with ending up at the final product of the Kelvin Connie and the Vengeance. I'm guessing the process was the same for both.
Yeah, well, I didn't model the Vengeance. That was I'm trying to remember how to pronounce his name. It was another ship artist, Mauricio Tejerina, I think is how you pronounce his name. That's probably really wrong. But anyway, it's the same sort of thing. We actually did get some reference images from the ships on the ship's side, some orthographic renders. which were very useful. We got Renders of Vengeance and the D4 and the Enterprise and some other things. And for me, it was just collecting it, screenshots. The orthographic renders are really good, but you also need screenshots to figure out, okay, well, because I also had to make a brand new material for the ship's hull, right? It wasn't enough to model the ship, but the Kelvin's hull is very different from every other ship in the game, every other Fed ship in the game, and wanted to honor that. So taking screenshots and looking at how the plates on the hull reflected light and what the value changes were and things like that, and where all the decals were and all that stuff. So it takes me a long time to do a cannon ship because I really want to make sure that I get those details right. And the Kelvin Constitution was no exception. That was very difficult, and it's kind of a deceptively simple design when you look at it from far away. But there are lots of very specific curves and angles and things that I wanted to make sure I reproduce faithfully, and especially like the Aztec pattern on the saucer and then the decals and the cells and all that. So just going through that and kind of with a fine-tooth comb and saying, these are all the things that I need to hit that are important. And then as I model and as I create the textures, making sure that all that stuff feels the right way. In fact, there was a really funny goof where we always start with the material first when we're doing a ship that has a new material. We always make material first for various reasons, but I was using the normal TOS Constitution model as kind of a test bed for the material that I was making, because the new material is going to be unwrapped to the Kelvin Constitution in a similar way as the and I don't know if you guys know this. We've kind of talked about it a few times in different avenues, but every ship material on STO follows the exact same layout, and that's why you can swap materials on your ships. That's why we can have reputation shield overlays, is because when you look at the texture on the ship, the deflector is always in the same place. The primary hull paneling is always in the same place. The secondary hull paneling is always in the same place. The warp grills, the impulse engines, all that stuff, all those textures, they're on one sheet together and they're always in the same place. And that means we can put any material on any ship. So anyway, so I was using the TOS Constitution model as a test bed for the new Kelvin ship material, and I forgot to take it off before a build went out to Tribble. And so people found that on Tribble and were like, "Oh my God, we're gonna get the Kelvin Constitution material on the TOS model." And I had to go on Reddit and say, "No, sorry, that's not actually going to happen."
Yeah, I remember that.
Had to crush some dreams. And so that was definitely a live and learn moment for me. But yeah, so it's really just I think for any artist, it's about having an eye for those details and making sure that you can kind of discern what's important and execute on that. What makes the Kelvin Constitution different from like the movie, the original movie refit? Like their whole materials might be similar, but there are some distinct differences, and so kind of teasing those out and making sure that it's almost like painting a portrait of somebody. You can you almost have to kind of try to figure out what the spark is of the soul that makes them unique and make sure that you can get that into the canvas. And I feel like modeling cannon ships is sort of the same way.
Who's in charge of the ships in view in the dock and ESD?
Those are part of the environment. So you're saying like when we change things out, usually the conversation. Yeah, it hasn't been updated in a while. Usually the conversation is somebody thinks, "Hey, we haven't updated that in a while. We should swap them out." And unfortunately, it's not a situation where we can just take the model from the thing that I make and just put it out there. There's actually quite a bit of work that needs to be done, because the models that I make for ships are actually at a completely different scale than the models that are in the environment, like in the ESD. do you guys remember? There's a bug that comes up every once in a while where people
Yes.
will beam down to a map and they turn into ships.
Uh-huh.
So
Oh yeah.
that is the actual scale of when you're flying a ship around in space. That is how big that model is in terms of the world of the game. And so for an environment artist to actually make we just literally call it a ground scale ship, they have to take the original kind of parlance, a ship that you're flying, we call it costume. They have to take the original costume geo, scale it up. Usually they might have to like copy materials over and do some other things. So it's not a free process. It's not just, oh, take this and put this out here. It's kind of time consuming. So that's one of the things that just is, those models are old, but they're not broken, right? So it's kind of a lower priority in terms of polish and something we keep updated. In general, the person who does that just because he likes to do it is Taco Fangs. He's the kind of, the environmentalist artist who's done it the most. But, it's something that we certainly could do more if we had time to do it more.
So
Just
you've
Taco
just
Fangs?
Nick.
Yeah.
Oh.
You've just triggered Spencer now because you just said that this whole it's immersion. It's his immersion. You're
Oh god.
you're ruining his immersion.
Well, I completely sympathize. Immersion is one of the things that's really important to me. That's one of the reasons that we went through, and I enlisted people's help way back in season 9, and standardize all the Starfleet uniforms and all that stuff. So I totally get about immersion, but it's still, I don't think it's not immersive to have those ships out there as much as it would be more immersive if they changed often. But there's just other things we've been focusing on lately, and I'm sure once things settle down and we just released the giant expansion, and we're working on getting consoles. Getting that out the door and everything. So once these 2 giant releases settle down, we'll be able to have more time for that kind of polish. But that's it's not quite something that's high on the priority list in the immediate vicinity.
I have an immersion question, actually.
Oh,
Okay.
boy.
The Vengeance Deflector, is it supposed to animate, the opening and closing?
So it is the Vengeance Deflector, and then the cell fins on the Kelvin Connie. They're modeled to be able to animate. One of the things that happened under the hood in the transition in the build up to Agents of Yesterday was we actually switched the game to an entire new animation system on the back end. And basically it was one animator who did that, and he'd been working on it for months. And so little touches like that, they were planned and they're on the radar, and I think they will be done eventually. But that's just something that didn't get time to do it. Because I agree, it should work, and it's set up to work. On the ship art side, we've set everything up to do that. We just need the animation to come back and finally get that stuff implemented. So I expect it to happen at some point, but.
Yeah, I wonder if that broke it for the Avenger. I have to pull out my Avenger.
No, I don't
test that out.
think so. It was animation that already existed. Hopefully it works. There probably are bugs that we'll need to iron out, but it's not that it was there and it broke. It was just that he didn't have time to do it on the build-up because he was doing all this other stuff.
If I remember correctly, I don't remember if it's the Avenger or the Tier 6 variant of it, but the port nasal the closing animation doesn't work.
Yeah, that's one of those things, and little things in a long list that I'm sure I can fix. I just need to have the time to sit down and knock a bunch of those out. So.
Well, I mean, you guys only released 16 ships and a new expansion. I mean, come on.
Well, if you're counting lockbox, were you counting lockbox ships?
Yeah, because there was 12 in the Agents of Yesterday pack at the
Right.
pack total, and then the 4, 3 lockbox and 1 low buy. So yeah, 16 ships. Actually, no, technically 17 because there's also the Pioneer that was made for the tutorial mission and to help you level up through the first 6 missions in 23.
Maybe 18 if you count the Connie.
Not enough!
Yeah, that's true. 18. No, but
Well, there's also the Vorgon ships and the JJ Prize and not the JJ Prize, the Enterprise J and.
Yeah, and actually the Enterprise J was done by Taco Fangs.
Yeah.
That was his first ship, and I think it turned out really good.
Yeah, give him a pat on the back. That was well done.
So it sounds like you're implying that you can't just hand wave and solve these issues.
There's very little time, you know, being new to this industry, I wasn't really expecting it, but like there's very little time in between jobs to do things, you know, like you're scheduled something and you have to, like, and pretty much to put out a quality product, you have to use every single bit of time that you have on doing that thing. And you're only given so much time to do it. And that was kind of a big eye-opener to me, was getting here, like realizing I couldn't take a month to do a bridge, you know, or 2 months. And the bridges I've made on my own time in the past, before I got a job at Cryptic, I would spend, you know, 2 or 3 months just, you know, fawning over the details and making sure I got everything right. But the reality is, you know, at a game company, there's always something else that needs to be done, and so you have to fit what you can in your schedule. But once you're done with that thing, you move on to the next thing in your schedule. So it's very hard to, you know, and all those things are prioritized by somebody other than the artist, you know. So it's very hard to go back and fix those little things when you only have so much time to work on the things that are absolutely required of you to do in the first place.
And I should say we do actually have time scheduled in general. We call it checkpoint time. We call them checkpoint weeks that are ideally used for exactly that, where you go back and you're like, okay, I don't have a new task this week. Typically, it's like at the end of a 6-week stretch or something. The 7th week will be, okay, this is your checkpoint week. You don't have new work to do. You're supposed to go back and polish up your old stuff, or maybe fix some bugs. What's happened recently is just we've been, you know, if you think about what we did with Agents of Yesterday, it's kind of mind-blowing because we basically made a new MMO, right? We made a TOS MMO because it's new UI, it's new icons, it's new effects, it's new ships, even new skins for the critter ships with like the Gorn critter group, they're completely new ships. So you know, it was a really ambitious project, and so every minute we had, we were working on, you know, adding, like making sure the TOS stuff for Agents of Yesterday felt really authentic. So I think again, you know, we've got that, and then we've got console coming up, and we're really focused on a console launch right now, and want to really make that as good as we can. And so when we kind of are able to spin down a little bit from these huge projects, we'll be able to go back and make more use of those checkpoint weeks for some of these longer standing issues. I remember, because I have been able to do that in the past. I think I remember seeing somebody complain on Reddit about the Stargazer. There was a Stargazer bug, and so I saw that thread, and I had time when I saw that, and I went back and fixed it. When we released the Hestia, I did a lot of work fixing some Prometheus bugs at that time in terms of the animation and stuff. So it does happen. We do make time for it when we can. It's just this is a very kind of specially unique period in the game's history where we have these major releases kind of back to back, and that's just where our focus is. And we want to make sure we get those out the door and that they're really awesome. And then when we get that all squared away, we can go back and tackle some of these longer standing things.
You guys, can't fool me. You can't fool me. Listen. I've read the forums. I've read Reddit. I've got my fingers on the pulse of the community. I know very well that you guys spend too much time making ships when you should be fixing all the bugs that are in the game.
I do what I can to fix ship bugs. So that's all I can say about that. Something that never ceases to amaze me is how complicated making an MMO is, and how complicated doing all this stuff is. And obviously we don't want bugs to ship, and we don't want things to kind of live in there forever. And I do what I can when I can to make sure that my ships are ship and they're in pretty good shape, and things just slip through. It's just inevitable. It sounds like a cop out, but and I certainly take it personally. I think the Galaxy Dreadnought had a weird bug when it came out, where the lance was firing from the dish basically, and I could tell you how that happened and why I didn't notice it happening, and you would say, "Holy crap! Like that's just it's just stuff. Stuff happens. Who are you gonna call? Ghostbusters."
Yeah.
No.
But I'm always trying to do better, and I'm glad that Odin mentioned the core, because that's something that I didn't work on that ship myself, but I can certainly add it to my list of things to investigate, and those lists exist, and when people post things on Reddit, I always take a note of that and make sure that for things that I'm directly involved with, at least for ships, I do my best to follow up on when I can. So.
And that's the purpose of bringing the developers onto the show, to get to know you guys more, beyond the title of developer or UI artist or ship designer, to kind of get out there and give people kind of that look, behind the scenes look of hey, common sense time. There was a big AOI expansion. We've now announced that console is coming, which I imagine is a huge undertaking. And it's we have been trying to use our own spare time that I could be going home and doing something else with my significant other, my cat, my dog, going out catching Pokemon. But you know what? I decided to stay home, or stay at work, which could be called home sometimes, to try and fix up these things to kind of quiet the tears, so to speak. I'm going to put it that way. But yeah, it's just, we want people that listen to get to know you guys more, and I've learned so much more, especially about Thomas the cat now. But you guys, real quick, you guys have mentioned about console. I know you guys can't get into too many details, but can you maybe let us know what you two have been working on console-wise? Has it been UI, or what have you been working on, and how is that going?
Well, I can talk about lighting, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, as you know, we're introducing a new lighting system for the entire game. So what we've been doing pretty much on the environment side is going through and polishing lighting, and actually almost sometimes having to relight entire areas of the game to make them compatible with the new system. And that's a great thing, because now we have a lot more flexibility in what we can do in situations with lighting. So it's making a lot of our environments a lot more atmospheric and a lot more authentic looking, realistic looking as well. And it excites me, and I came in at a good time, because I'll have to say, coming into the lighting system when I first got here, it was difficult to work with because it was so limited. But now, we're making the game look a lot better than it did. So with the console release, you're not only getting the game on console, you're also getting an improved version of the game on console. So we're even getting a chance to go through some of the recent stuff, like the Kelvin bridges, and relighting those too. So those will look even better once they're released on console. I don't know if those are going to be released immediately on console. I don't think they are, but so eventually the entire game's going to have it's getting a facelift, so to speak. So
PC and console.
Well, the new lighting system will eventually, not when console launches, but in a future update, the new lighting system will make it to PC as well. Absolutely. So.
A little question about the lighting, because a lot of the blogs that I've seen have banned lighting on interiors, like down on the ground in caves or in some of the dark maps, like the Romulan bases and that. Will there also be a lighting update to space systems like Sol system or New Romulus system?
Absolutely. Yeah, we're going through everything. Even sector space gets lighting polished now. So, but the cool thing is about those maps is not necessarily going to be the lighting as much as the fact that we're going to have reflection like cubes in the game now. Specular probes is what we call them. So reflections are going to be a lot more accurate than what they were before. So you're really going to notice that kind of stuff out in space rather than some of the other lighting tweaks. But yeah, so now I don't know how far we're going to go with it. I haven't done any space maps myself, but potentially you could have light coming from a torpedo. But I don't know if that's something that the effects guys are actually doing.
We already do that a little bit where effects emit light and the reflection. So just I want to kind of expand on what Donny was saying about specular probes because before we would. Reflections, we would just kind of have a thing called just a cube map, right? That was basically just a texture that had a, reflection goes here kind of approach where this was just a texture and your reflection on your object or your material would just reflect what is in this texture. But now what's actually happening is, from my understanding, is the material will actually pick up what is around it and actually reflect things in the actual environment and not just this baked in like one size fits all texture. So things like the Mako armor look amazing in this new system. Is that basically accurate?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we used to take like reflection cube maps and we would generate them in like one place, and then that would be over the entire level. So you might be in a room and you'd see a reflection kind of something that was in another room. But now we have the power to actually, per room or per area of a map, or we can have many in areas, but we can specify where that reflection is being taken from now. So it's allows a lot more power, and especially like metallic and shiny textures now have more of a realistic and accurate look to them.
I have to say that I am tickled pink by this because you're talking about all this and I'm just like, oh my god, ship videos are gonna look so much better. And that's why I was asking about like space systems getting like the lighting update too, because there's some systems where it's really hard to get good lighting on a ship to be able to see it accurately, and that's why I do a lot of the Federation ships in Sol system out by the old space dock over there. I find that's the best spot to get a nice light over the hull to be able to see the details. But there's some other systems where just you try and look at the ship, it's like, oh man, like I like the backdrop, but there's not enough lighting here. It's like, and I'm really excited about this.
Yeah, one of the things we haven't had time to do, and I don't know how long it would take. It's kind of a pie in the sky thing at this juncture, but right now how we have lights on ships is we just kind of paint on the light spill from like the buster collector or the warp grill or the deflector. We kind of manually paint that on the model, and someday it would be awesome if we could actually go through now with this new technology and add real lights to those things, so that you would actually, so if you got two ships close together, the light from one deflector array would actually illuminate the other ship. So that's a kind of pie in the sky goal, but this new technology would allow us to do something like that. But that would mean going back, we need to go and figure out a system and relight every ship in the game, which is like 600 at this point or something. So yeah, but it's exciting, and I'm excited that the PC game is getting these lighting improvements too.
Oh yeah, for sure. I was just about to ask about the actual, like the lights on the ships too, and you kind of just answered it there. But yeah, that sounds like that would be a huge undertaking. Is there anything else about console that you can talk about?
Well, my focus on the console is UI, and that's another huge area of work because, you know, we basically have to rebuild the UI from scratch for a console because the PC UI is completely unsuitable. It's been interesting to see people's reactions because we have some people who are like, "Oh, when are we going to get this UI on PC?" And then other people are like, "Ah, don't ever let that console UI come near me," you know. Um, that's not something people need to worry about in terms of you know, console UI bleeding under the PC UI anytime soon. I think right now we're focused on just getting the console UI to where it needs to be. And one of the things that's really neat about the console UI is that we've got the right, some of the right LCARS fonts, and it feels pretty authentic. And just being able to use a full screen for some UIs has made it feel a lot more LCARS and slick and polished. So going forward, that's something that is going to be an interesting balance, to say the least, because you don't necessarily want to make every UI full screen for PC players because that takes away a lot of your flexibility, like in terms of looking at your inventory versus looking at what's equipped on your ships or your ship selector. That's something that's going to be a different experience on console for sure as opposed to PC. So that's been an interesting balance, but I think the console UI has come along, and it definitely feels really, really Star Trek, which I'm happy with.
Somebody asked in channel, and it might be a little too early to have an answer for it, but can the console controls be remapped?
I believe they can. I think we have a remap option now. I'm gonna equivocate on that a little bit just because I haven't dug in the options menu a lot myself, but I believe that's one of the screens we have in options is letting people change how they've got their controller layout.
Oh, right on. Yeah, it's still early in the game. I think console is slotted to be released end of this year or fall of this year.
We're falls right now, is what we're saying.
Yeah, I have a little plan for a video. I'm gonna try my hand at doing a Star Trek Online trailer for the game itself, unofficial one, but kind of try and maybe hype it up and get people who don't play on PC maybe excited for it on Xbox and what's the other lesser console? PS4. There we go. Yeah, but yeah, that's so. Yeah, it's. Oh. Anybody else got questions? I think I've actually gone through all the questions I had here.
I think Odin was taking a list of questions from the audience.
Oh, actually, real quick, remember the ship creation contest that resulted in the Jupiter class ship?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know if, like, in the future, I know things are really busy right now, do you think that'll ever come back for Klingon and Romulans?
I don't know. I think that was pretty successful, but I'm not sure what the plan is in doing another one. And yeah, right now we definitely have are focused on console launch and other things, and tying up any loose ends from agency yesterday. So, but we'll see. I think it was cool, and do you guys, as members of the community, were you happy with the results? Do you think that it was a good way for us to design a ship, or do you wish that you hadn't seen those other options because we didn't pick the one you being the community didn't pick the one that you wanted?
I personally thought it was a really, really great concept. It got the community engaged. There was the hashtag Team Omega, Team Alpha. We talked about it at length on the show here. At first, I I was a little sad that the Jupiter ended up winning, because originally I didn't think that the Jupiter really had that. How do I explain it? The classic Federation round saucer feel to it. But then I saw the Jupiter. I purchased the Jupiter, and then I think that was actually my very first ship feature video, fresh out of space dock. And
cool.
when I saw it, I'm like, you know what? This is actually pretty sexy. Like, this looks good. It flows nice. So I really loved it. I loved how it engaged the community. So I thought it was successful.
Yeah, Jam Jam's Ian Richards did a great job on the model.
I wasn't happy. Since you're bringing it up.
No, I want to know. I'm curious if.
No, it wasn't. The ships weren't bad themselves. It's the way the contest was run, and I've spoken quite at length about this. It ended up being that there were certain ships that were very similar to each other, very, very close to each other, and towards the end of the contest, you had basically just minor variations of the same ship being voted on. So I don't think the way the vote was done was very good. I would have preferred more of at least a round robin stage at the beginning, or just had them vote on everything
instead of doing a bracket, like actually have a.
Yeah, because towards the end, you basically had like two or three variants of the same ship, and very minor. It's like, the difference between this one and that one. This one had a roll bar, or it was something to that effect. They were very, very close. So that was my issue with it. I would have preferred seeing like the different other ships that were there go towards the end, because like, I don't mind the Jupiter. It was nice. It wasn't my first choice or second choice or third choice, fourth choice, really. Yeah, I would have preferred some of the other ones to get really far. And you know what? They still look very, very nice. I mean, the Jupiter isn't bad. Let's be honest. It isn't bad.
No, not bad at all.
But I would have preferred seeing some of the other ones. And hell, you know what? What I really would like, those ships that you guys obviously worked on. I don't know if you specifically worked on it or not, but those ships that were worked on, maybe they can be re-released or released again as different ships.
I have a real quick question about that. The Nautilus, was that a design that was taken from that contest?
No.
No? Because I remember during the contest.
I mean, well, let me say this: that Hector Ortiz designed both, and so maybe he, sometimes we do when we have one direction of concept that we don't use. At one point, Hector will put it on the shelf and then come back and say, "Oh yeah, I remember doing this before. It wasn't right for that thing, but maybe it's right for this new thing." So Hector could have done that, or he could have done it subconsciously with the Nautilus. But I don't remember being in a room where he declared that's what he did.
Oh, okay, because I remember in the contest there was the silhouette, and there was a ship that kind of looked like a pizza cutter. And then the Nautilus, when I first saw it up close and from the side, I'm like, that looks like a pizza cutter as well. So I thought maybe the design was borrowed from the contest, which makes sense. If you had it drafted up, hey, why not, right? But
sure.
Sorry, that was a quick question. Odin and Spencer, I think it's your turn to answer about the contest.
Spencer.
I'm trying to remember. I think I'd voted for one of the other ones, but that was a while back. I don't fully remember.
I think that's back when you were asleep on the show, actually.
That probably was.
He was asleep a lot, so, pick an episode, flip a coin, he may have been asleep. For myself, I was definitely Team Epsilon for a while, but like Sarcasm, I think the idea is great. How it was executed in the voting could use some work. Something that might, I don't know, and this is probably one of those pie in the sky ideas, but wouldn't it be nice if, say, all of the artists and environmental groups got together and they decided to like, oh, you know what? We could start making ship parts and just make like individual ship parts and then sell, like, say, customize your own starship and build it from the ground up, and it would have stats based off the type of hull you would pick and engine you'd pick, saucer section would determine loadouts or something to that effect. Like if you could assemble parts together and then build your ship and then go out with that.
Yeah, I remember originally I thought it was going to be like we got to vote on each stage of the design process, like kind of pick the ship hull, then pick like style of deflector or nacelles, and then maybe even get to vote on the bridge layout of the ship for bridge officers and stuff like that. And then maybe I think we even said that it'd be nice if there was like a unique custom bridge that came with it that we could almost vote on. But yeah.
So I mean that's interesting. Doing something like that, I think, like handling the contest that way, that sounds really cool. It would definitely increase the time to complete. That would take a lot longer to do it that way, as opposed to, here's the concept in stage 1, here's a concept in stage 2, stage 3, or whatever. But that's not impossible to do it that way. That's an interesting way to approach it.
I'm thinking from both, and I understand this would be a lot of work up front, but yeah, this could be something that could be a big selling point for STO in the future, is if you had it from both a visual perspective, build your own starship, and then from a gameplay / stats perspective, build your own starship. It'll perform this way, make it a little bit more robust or tankier. It'll have this look. Or you want to carry more weapons. All right, here's the hull or loadout that'll work for you. Better engine performance. You want this. Oh, you want this glossy look with it too, or this type of sleek design. Well, here's what you do, and then each one of them will cost Zen or dilithium or both, and run with that.
That is so different from how we do ships right now that I don't know if we could ever do it that way in STO. Maybe another Star Trek game that's built from the ground up for that kind of implementation. And it's not impossible to do it in STO, but I think it's a completely different paradigm that might be a little confusing if we try to implement it on top of what we already have. Because the customization we have now in terms of stats and performance is actually very, very granular, right? Because you can drop in a different warp core, a different impulse engine, but that's just divorced from how the ship looks. And so reincorporating them together, I think, would be really challenging in the framework we already have. But I actually agree with you that in some future Star Trek game that is as ship-focused as STO, that I would like to see more of a kind of marriage between what something looks like and what it does, how the form follows function, but you also sacrifice customization when you do that, because in that case you're kind of saying, well, you have to make the choice: do I want these impulse engines to look this way, or do I want these stats? And so people are typically optimized towards stats in that case, and so you might end up having a situation where most ships look the same because there's one build with certain nacelles and certain weapons and certain hull plating that's just straight up better than others. So those are all the questions that you would answer making a new Star Trek game. To be frank, I think that's such a paradigm shift. I think doing that in STO would be very, very difficult.
So then, can I poach you guys from Cryptic Studios if I start my own and suddenly get the IP?
No, because then they're not going to be there to make ships for me to keep doing ship porn.
No, you're hired too. You're hired too.
As long as demo record program comes over there, because I don't know of any other game that has a demo record tool.
A lot of them do. A lot of them are a little bit better. The demo record tool that's in STO is a little long in the tooth.
Oh.
I think it's been abandoned. In fact, I think it's abandonware at this point.
Not my department, so I don't know.
As long as it doesn't get removed, I
Yeah.
will be.
Well, our marketing people use it too, so I don't think it'll get removed because they need it to work.
Yeah, that's true.
Don't
So
they use
send me
their
your
own variant of
CVs
it?
and your salary requirements, and I'll give you my email address later on.
Pretty good.
I know that laugh. That's it. This goes nuts laugh.
That's like,
That's
haha,
that's
you're
the we don't want to get fired laugh.
Yeah.
funny. It's all in jest. It's all in jest, seriously.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll talk later. Kidding. Anyway, moving on to the rest of the show here. And by the way, you guys feel free to interject in anything that we have here that we're discussing. We got a couple things here as far as the release notes. SOB, as far as what you can see here, anything that any of the high-power pew-pews should be paying attention to?
Just that they have these great high deal cost immersion outfits that are coming out tomorrow. So it's a great deal sync. A lot of people are hating on it, but I personally like it. I just wish at that price it would be account wide. Because like $2 million for a single outfit is a bit high.
Wait, it's $2 million per outfit, and it's per
No, that's
character?
for the
Not
most
each.
expensive.
Yeah, the Mako outfit is 2 mil. The Wrath of Khan Captain Vest and Engineer Vest is 1.5 mil. And the Wrath of Khan jacket, the thick winter jacket, I believe was 1 mil. So, Thomas or Donny, do you know if these are actual deal costs that are carrying over to Holodeck, or is that a different department?
This is definitely a different department. And actually, I wanted to say that we've got to get back to work. I've actually got some console stuff to do before I leave. So I want to go ahead and take my leave now. And I appreciate the time talking to you guys, and thanks for being interested in everything we do and letting us come on and talk about ships, environments, and stuff. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Well, we
thank-
appreciate having you on here.
Yeah, thank you very much for taking the time to come talk with us, guys. This was actually a lot of fun. I hope you guys had fun too.
Yeah, it was great to talk to you guys, and and I'm glad you guys are interested in what we do, and thanks for actually treating us like humans and not just devs. We really appreciate that.
Before we go, were there other topics that you did want to, get our input on real quick?
When is the next Manticore 2 coming out?
I don't know. I'm pretty happy with the Manticore we've got, but
Actually,
we'll see. Never say never.
I have one quick ship question for you, Thomas.
Sure.
We're talking about the end of Star Trek Beyond.
Yeah.
With the spoiler alert, spoiler if you haven't watched, cover your ears. With the A, what do you think of it?
I was really surprised that it wasn't more different. It was a lot closer to the Connie than I was expecting.
Yeah.
I thought they might, I've seen it twice now. I've seen Beyond twice, and the second time I paid real close attention to what it looked like. The nacelles, the way the nacelles and the struts match up are interesting. The proportions are certainly new. I don't want to express like a definitive opinion right yet because there's just a lot. Like I've only seen it in the movie, and I want to like get some good stills to kind of pour over and really analyze. I certainly I tend to like ships that are a bit longer. I think the original Connie really nailed the proportions. There's an article somewhere somebody wrote about how, and when you look at it, it basically is a perfect implementation of like the golden ratio, right? The new Enterprise A isn't, from what I could tell, doesn't really fit that ratio very well. The nacelles seem a little shorter than I would have expected them to be. So I'm really curious to get a better look I don't want to try to form too strong of an opinion without having a really good look at it, and we just don't have that yet. So I'm sure by the time it comes out to Blu-ray, when Beyond gets on Blu-ray, hopefully they'll even have a little behind-the-scenes segment about it, maybe, and we'll get some better images and take a look. And it's the other thing is, who knows if they make a Star Trek 4 if they'll even use that design. Sometimes, like the Enterprise looked a little different between the end of In the Darkness and the beginning of Beyond. So,
or for instance, the Enterprise bridge on Star Trek 4 at the end looked completely different
right.
from how it looked in Star Trek 5. So.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much, guys, for coming on the show. Hopefully we can drag you on again when the next fantastic ship comes out.
And have fun in Vegas.
Yeah, any of you guys going?
The U.S. to Canadian dollar ratio sucks, and because it's 50th anniversary, everything is ridiculously expensive. So $300 tickets to get into the thing for the week equaled about $475 Canadian.
Thanks.
Oh, wow.
So I am going to make a honest try to come down next year for 51st to meet you guys and all that stuff.
Were you there last year? Did I meet you? I feel like I met you.
No.
Okay.
My fleet, people from my fleet were there though.
Oh, okay. Yes. Yeah.
I heard that you sing a mean.
Faith
It's
of the Heart.
been a long.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. I do sing it. I don't think it's a mean rendition of it. If by mean you mean bad, then yes, that is accurate.
A good one. You gave it a solid try. Better than I probably could.
I gave it the old college try.
Exactly. Yeah.
Anything else in terms of STO questions I can dodge before I get off here?
How do you want to make Torps prettier, aside from putting nice light shows on them?
I think that's.
I always try to add lots of torpedo tubes to the ships that I work on. I don't know if you've noticed. When I revamped the Odyssey, I added a couple extra. So that's all I can do from the ship artist perspective, and make pretty torpedo icons.
You just reminded me of something that happened with the Yorktown. So the Odyssey before, the change going to the Yorktown, there's a phaser array now that shoots phasers or shoots the beam weapons.
Oh, from the bridge, yeah.
From the bridge there. And I think I talked with Bort about that. It's like, oh, it's always been like that. It's like, no. But
it's the what's always been like that is that the fire at will has always shot from the turret node, and just the turret node on the Yorktown is closer to the bridge than it is on the normal Odyssey. And that just was the best place to put it, because you need the turret node. There are 4 turret nodes on a ship. There's the top, front, top, back, bottom, back. And you need those turret nodes to basically have 360-degree clearance, or at least like 270-degree clearance or whatever. And so on the Yorktown, it kind of has to be where it is, or else phaser beams might clip through some geometry. So that's just kind of the rundown of why those things are.
Like, think of all that radiation that's being spewed from the emitter array right next to the bridge crew. I mean,
shut up and put on an EV suit then. God.
Well, if
rapid nadons, man, you don't have to worry about that.
Well, we had a big Twitter conversation about this sarcasm detector. I remember, and I remember like cracking open the model and taking a look and seeing if there was a better place for that node to go. And unfortunately, that was pretty much the best place for it in terms of how the effects spawn. And see, that's the hard thing about a video game versus like a movie. In a movie, you don't have to answer these types of questions because you have total control over where it shoots and when it shoots. But when you have a video game, you just kind of have to make these things work, and then players get them, and they do all kinds of and it just has to be a lot more flexible. So yeah, I could look at it again someday, but I looked at it pretty hard before, and unfortunately that was just the best place for it to be mechanically.
I'm still salty about it. You've completely ruined the ship for me. Completely ruined the ship. It's a
no.
piece of garbage. Now if it wasn't one of the best ships in the game, I would discharge it, but
Sarcasm detected.
Oh.
I just want to say thank you for coming on, and T6 Sovereign would greatly help my immersion.
Yes.
All right. We have the absolute last question from the old Captain Lokiawa. Something about neon lit registries. Could you do that? Could you do us all a solid and make like these solid pink neon lit registries?
Oh, the captain is asking for his thoughts on it.
No. Just do it. Don't even think about it. Just do it.
I'm trying to understand the question, like how people trick out their cars to have like undercarriage lighting that's like purple and blue and stuff like that, but they want that on the registry of the ship, or they want like actual like the outline of the registry is bright and neon, looks like a neon sign.
Why not both?
Because my immersion, goddammit.
Oh, sorry.
That's a good answer.
again, thank you very much, guys.
Sure thing.
Yeah,
All right,
thank
on
you,
that
guys.
note.
Y'all have a good night over there.
You too, guys. Thank you.
All right, take it easy.
See ya.
See ya.
All right, so we got that fun stuff finished up here. Sarcasm, you want to finish us off here with side tech? Please, what do we have on our radar here?
Yeah. No. Hold on. Wait a second.
Oh, no.
Wait a second.
We're going to hold on a second. Okay.
Wait a second. So, the Mako costume is what? You said 2 million dill?
2
Now-
million dill.
This is before the fleet dill
Discount.
mine discount, so it'll be 1.7 million dilithium per character, and it's character bound, so you cannot sell the outfit on the exchange.
Okay. Let's not talk about the, 1.7, the fleet discount yet. According to my math, with the current exchange rate, 2 million dill is $50.
Let me get some buckets. I'll be right back.
I think that this is a great dill drain because a lot of people really, really want these outfits, and some of them will be crazy enough to want to buy them, which is going to push the dill exchange down a bit. So I'm fine with it. I'm actually glad that they did this.
Are you fine with the bound to account part though?
Bound to character?
Or to character? Like, if the prices are going to be that high, don't you think that that restriction, like you should be able to sell them on the exchange?
I agree, or at least be able to make them just account bound so you could put them in your account bank and swap it to a different character.
Because if the purpose is for as for a dilithium sink, then it would just make sense to be able to like, all right, well, I got all, because we know people who have this much dilithium that they could probably buy at least 5 of these and then just put them up on the exchange and become EC rich and solve the dilithium problem that they're facing.
So at 1.7 million, that's current exchange rate $42.50.
So we wasted our money on that shit. So if people have the money and that's what they want to really spend it on, go nuts. I see other uses for that much, that amount of dilithium, but I kind of hope that this kind of gets revisited and prices lowered and some restrictions removed off the box, personally.
If it was bind to account, no issue there whatsoever.
Yeah, at the very least account. Yeah.
But bind to character, spending $60 to $70 Canadian or $40 to $50 US for a single character for a cosmetic change. Like, okay, it's other people's money. They can spend money however they like. They're free to do so, just as I'm free to mock and laugh at them for doing so. So there you have it. I think.
I will mock and laugh at you for mocking and laughing at people then. Huh. I'm sorry, but not sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry you got offended. I'm not sorry I offended you.
Wow. Okay. All right.
Moving
Pretend
on.
that you're Americans and not Canadians. Go.
Freedom, states' rights.
Guns, Bibles. So,
Next. All right. So what else do we have here before we wrap this thing up?
okay, I got a few things here for you guys in the science and tech. It's pretty much no, actually, there's like a few things here. The first one is a video by our favorite, well, one of my favorite YouTube channels, Spacetime by PBS Digital Studios, and the title of this is The Quantum Experiment That Broke Reality. Guys, check out, it's a very short video. It's only 13 minutes long. It's going to cause your head to explode. Absolutely fantastic thing to watch. Next up is the article I found from newscientist.com talking about one of the galaxies that are orbiting the Milky Way. There's about 50 galaxies orbiting the Milky Way. And people or scientists used to think that the small and large Magellanic Clouds were the closest of those orbiting galaxies. It turns out there's another one. And that one is actually perturbing or deforming the Milky Way. And I recommend you check that article out, read it, and, get some real space knowledge in there. Not science fiction, science fact. It's really, really useful. And
yeah, it's actually, sorry, interjecting here real quick on this one. This one here is actually causing a lot of xenobiologists and astrophysicists to start rethinking, well, if all these little smaller galaxies are perturbing the Milky Way, then if we can probably track their orbital patterns and then figure out exactly how much perturbation effects were caused on the Milky Way, we can probably track and see where they've more or less kind of gathered a lot of the mass of the Milky Way. And then we can start rethinking, well, heck, if they've affected the Milky Way to this much of this dramatically, then they probably help the formation of life as we know it. We could probably see clusters of life within these bands or these little perturbation orbits around the Milky Way. So we could probably use these, I don't know what you want to call them, micro galaxies or little sub galaxies orbiting us, to be able to see, okay, where would we most likely find life? So this will help us.
It's a very fascinating read. The link is in the comments. And the last one, a little bit of medical science here from researchgate.net. And this one is a little bit weird. Scientists have discovered a antibiotic created by the bacteria in human boogers. So that thing that you pick out of your nose, there are bacteria in your nose, and they created an antibiotic that can kill MRSA. If you guys don't know what MRSA, it's Mephistophilus resistant Staph aureus. It's a type of staph, which is again a bacteria. It's actually a local flora. Local flora is usually bacteria that just lives with you. It's part of you. It's a symbiotic relationship. Staph aureus is actually one of those really weird ones. So you've heard of staph infections. You've maybe heard of MRSA. It's a really nasty mutation of staph that is immune to most antibiotics. Other things that staph has is necrotizing fasciitis, which is flesh-eating disease. Yeah, staph, it's a normal flora that lives inside you, can mutate into flesh-eating disease. Very nasty stuff. Well, to go on, the bacteria in your nose create an antibiotic that can kill it. So that's highly, highly interesting. Again, researchgate.com, researchgate.net, I'm sorry. The link for that is also going to be in the show notes.
So what you're saying is eat your boogers, stay healthy.
Maybe. Of course, they've got to culture it and grow it and purify it and refine it and, make a stronger version of it. But, it's interesting. There's a lot of germs out there that are becoming really resistant to antibiotics, and it's mainly due to the overprescribing of antibiotics. And not only that, people don't use the antibiotics very well. Like, if you've ever been sick, you probably got the doctors probably told you have to go through the full regimen of the antibiotics. You have to take it from beginning to end and not stop when you feel better. There's a reason for that. And part of the reason, if you stop early, then it's highly possible that you are breeding superbugs. But enough of that. We're going into a lot of medical detail there. And that's
I like it.
For me.
Personally, I like it. I'm all with this. Any closing remarks from everybody here?
Pick your nose, stay healthy.
Well,
Booger time.
You can pick your friends and you can pick your nose, but don't pick your friend's nose. That's a bit awkward.
Oh.
Yeah, their biome may actually be bad for you.
Closing remarks.
Well, thank you.
I had fun once. I didn't like it.
What? Well, hold on. What?
I said
you had fun.
I had fun once.
Okay.
I didn't like it.
All right. Yeah. On that note, thank you, Zeph, for bringing these devs on, and we actually got to christen Donny Rocket on the show. So you henceforth be known as Donny Rocket.
Donny Rocket.
All right. Yeah, we're done. It's late. Everybody, thank you for tuning into the show. Love you all. See you in game. Have a good night or good morning somewhere.
See you all, and remember to make sure your build is fully, immersed. Use phasers. They're good.
Live long and film on.
Torp life.